Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 336 for October 2nd, 2019. My name is Russell Frost. I am your tour guide for this week's journey into advanced tech mobility and sustainable energy. And along for the ride, I have to introduce him first. Well, no, I'm not going to introduce him first because Casey Green and his hamburger.
It's beef free. It's plant based. It's as you might see, I'm in New York City, and I went down to the bodega, and they had this or a salad. So, salad's an appetizer.
There we go. We're having hamburgers on during the show, but they're vegetarian, so he's still on point. And speaking of on point, my co-host, I miss him when he's not here. And when he is here, I miss him too. But Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. And hello from the northern Chicagoland area. Yeah, I don't know. Just anxiously awaiting the start of the hockey season. Doesn't officially start until Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. Any games before that don't count.
Boo!
So wait. The game that Evan is not doing the show for doesn't even count?
No St. Louis Blues games ever count for anything, especially if they win or any series at all.
So are these like warm-ups, or are you just saying that because they're not your team, they don't count?
Yes.
You mean there are other teams? I didn't realize there were other teams.
Well, how many people beat up? But anyway,
So just pickup games.
There we go. Well, speaking of another hockey fan, we have one more. He is our friend in Canada, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. And I don't know what the hell Tony's talking about.
That's okay. That makes two of us. Mark.
He is so far off the deep end. It just sounds like gibberish when he starts talking hockey.
Oh, you're just jealous because Montreal doesn't have a team.
I know what it is. Tony, what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, that's true. I have another lumbersexual from Only Child Brewing. Yes.
Nice water. That's okay. So you are.
It's
drinking.
like he makes up the names.
I thought you were like a little grumpy maybe because you weren't drinking, but so Tony's attitude is going to improve over the time. Of the show,
yes.
And last, but certainly not least, a man who surely has a customer-donated beer, the owner and founder of Boulder Hybrids in Boulder, Colorado, Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey, everybody. Yes, my beer this week is Tropical Torpedo from Sierra Brewery. My camera's a little dirty. Let's see if I can clean it off here. Is that better?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's from Chico, California.
So
am I the only one I'm sorry?
Speaking of buying your mechanic a beer, it came up on one of our Tesla clubs the other day about, do you tip the Tesla Ranger? And I said no, because they are regular mechanics at the dealership. But if you feel like you must do something, Mr. Paul Guzik recommends that you bring them a case of beer.
Well, I mean, a six-pack.
And recommend that they consume it when they get home off duty.
Yeah.
Between you and the next job.
As soon as he finishes this job, then you can start drinking.
Yeah.
After this, you can do whatever you want, man.
There's I think I mentioned there's a microbrewery opened in our complex, and there's also a coffee shop in our complex, and we send customers, go wait at the coffee shop. We'll text you when your car is ready. And so why don't you just tell them to go sit at the brewery and wait? And I said, yeah, that's not a good idea. Go have a couple of beers and then come and pick up your car and drive home. So
right.
Yeah.
Very responsible, Paul. More responsible than I would be.
Coffee shop.
Start at the brewery, work your way to the coffee shop, and I'll call you, and then you'll be ready.
Yeah. Well, the first thing we have a lot of news to cover, so we're going to try and be quick and succinct this week.
Let me preface you real quick, Russell, because I usually save this until the end of a show, and I want to go ahead and do this now and lead into.
Okay.
Usually at the end of the show, I call out our most recent subscribers. So Goran and Larry and Gogol, Ty, Luca, Ronan, Kane, George, Reg, Rick, Richard, Al, and Bob are some of our most recent subscribers. And I want to give a shout out to to all of them. Yeah, I know, right?
Mhm.
So for each and every person who's taken the time to subscribe to the channel, I want to say thank you. You are the reason we do this. And
Otherwise, we'd be just talking to ourselves.
why is that so important this week, Russell?
I don't know. Why is it so important?
Number-
Wait. I do know. So obviously what Tony is referring to is we've been begging and pleading and cajoling, maybe even a little threatening sometimes, for which I apologize. All of you to subscribe, suggest us to your friends, repost it, share it, subscribe. We need to get to 1,000 subscribers. Guess what we did day before yesterday?
Booyah!
A million.
Yay.
We are at
That'd be amazing.
1,008. Thanks to
Yes.
each and every one of you. And I can't not sincerely thank all of you enough. I posted this on Twitter and on Facebook. But seriously, thank you for taking the time to subscribe. Thank you for hanging in there. And we crossed that line over 1,000. Now, of course, we're still going to be begging people to subscribe. That's one of the metrics that YouTube uses to determine what we can do and what kind of support we get, all of that. And it's still super important to grow those subscriber numbers. But
The first milestone.
yeah, that's a great milestone. And I mean, we've been doing this show for 10 years.
Wow.
And I get that, like, there are 10-year-olds doing makeup tutorials that have like 600,000 subscribers. And I get that we're not nearly as entertaining as a 10-year-old doing a makeup tutorial. And because of that, Tony from now on is going to be doing the makeup tutorials.
Yes.
No, we need to get a grumpy cat on the show.
Oh, a grumpy cat.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm a grumpy dude. Is that
Not the same.
That's not the
You
same.
need
They
a
wear a
cat
cat
mask.
suit. Wear a cat
cat mask. Oh, I like that. I could do that
Oh.
with a cat mask.
Yeah, does like Skype have filters and things that I can
does.
do? Like,
It does.
yeah,
It
all
used
right.
to, but yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, seriously, thanks to all of you for doing that. Please keep supporting the show. It doesn't cost you a dime, and it helps us immensely. Thanks for helping us cross that 1,000 subscriber goal. That was a huge thing, and believe it or not, we were all very happy about that. Notice the happy faces on the screen right now.
It really doesn't take much.
We're simple. First
Well,
story.
the other good thing is that you should now be able to do mobile live shows. So, like, if we're ever out in the field and we see something amazing, we can turn on the live stream, and you guys might be able to see that.
Here we go. Who knows what new and exciting things we'll be doing for you. Well, speaking of new and exciting, Mark has a first story about something going on in Florida.
Mhm.
Well, sticking with the show possible title of 1,000,
Ah,
this particular story has to do with 1,000 as well. But there are 1,000 new chargers, level 2, that are being put in place by Florida Electric Power and Light. So the public utility in Florida has committed to placing 1,000 new L2 chargers at over 100 sites across Florida. And they've indicated that their selection will not only be destinations, but businesses and other points of interest, as well as close to some major thoroughfares that they will be placing these 100 sites. So good to see that Florida Power is getting on board. It's always great to see more people installing level 2, which of course at this point is basically a destination charge. It's not really designed for anything like travel. This would be, basically when you're stopping for a while at a mall or a library or seeing a movie. These are great things to top up your charge and continue along your way after spending some time there. So
let me tell you
go
what
ahead.
I saw going on the Virginia coming north. I saw a sign that said EV charging, right? I was like, great. Let me plug in there, go to the restroom, right? Guess what I actually saw when I got there? It wasn't a Magna charger. It was a little more useful than that. Well, the restroom, yes. So anyway, it was a level 1 charger. Like, you open up the flap, and there were wall plugs inside.
God.
On the highway.
on the highway.
that's
Yes.
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
and the sign said, plug in, Step 2, wait 48 hours.
Yeah.
Step 3, get back in your vehicle.
It's a destination charger because at that speed, that is your destination.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere. Right.
Yes.
There you go. Well,
yeah.
You know, having lived in Florida, I want to tell you, there's not a lot of chargers down there. Not a lot of.
I'm actually shocked that Florida Power and Light is doing this because there are like non-green, let's burn the coal.
Or paid?
It didn't mention whether it was free.
It's probably
or
paid.
Yeah. But wasn't Florida Power the public utility? There was a story in the past about them and solar.
They were fighting solar.
They were fighting it. So
yeah.
Have they turned a new leaf, or is this just something different?
This makes you use more power.
Now, if only they could generate power by floods, they'll have the future. Wow.
They would.
Well,
they'll fight that too because
one of those
also
tidal machines built. They might have a chance there. But I'd certainly applaud the addition of 1,000 chargers in a charger desert, as Mr. Frost has indicated.
Right.
Yeah, the one thing they have an abundance of is superchargers, and they've got way more than you expect.
It is great to hear things, and I've mentioned before around here, Commonwealth Edison in northern Illinois, and Madison Power and Gas in Madison, Wisconsin, have been pushing chargers and plug-ins, and it is good to see the utilities jumping in and doing something like this. So expand the network and give people, an opportunity to do this charging. So 1,000 more charging points. We'll take them. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's where people go. Go ahead.
Our next story, we're going to go to Tony for something not entirely dissimilar.
Yeah. So the IPCC, if you don't know what IPCC, that's different than the ICUP, which is in the men's restroom. But
that must be a Midwest thing.
Yeah, that's not iWatch. It's just IC. So the intergovernmental, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, announced, of course, they're the ones that said that if we want to keep the planet below 1.5 degrees centigrade by the end of the century, we have to go 100% renewable by 2050. So they're the ones that put that line in the sand at the beginning of this century. And a lot of people said, well, that's not going to happen because they were using year 2000 prices. And they said, look, no one's ever going to go renewable. It's far too expensive. So a Bloomberg report came out that solar and wind no longer technically need government subsidies in a lot of areas around the world. So they're reaching that tipping point where they can subside on their own and compete head to head with fossil fuels and actually win in a lot of areas around the world. And of course, this is big news because this means the mighty dollar and yen and rupee and whatever, money is the driving factor behind adoption of a lot of technologies. So as these utilities are going to see renewable energy becoming more affordable than digging up fossil fuels and burning fossil fuels, we'll start seeing the market switch over to the renewables, which of course will push more adoption, which maybe, just maybe, we've got 30 years before the middle of the century. A lot can happen in 30 years. And we might not get a full 100% transition, but the thing is, burning oil and gas, that price rarely, if ever, goes down. And as we burn more of a finite fuel, it's only going to go up because supply is going to start going down. But the price of, I believe it said the price of wind was cut in half from where it was in 2010. So that's just in 9 years. Wind got cut in half. But what's amazing is solar has plummeted to 15% of where it was 9 years ago. 15% in 9 years. And, we know Moore's law. So the prices might go down even more as more and more of these installations go in. This was just big news. I mean, we talk about the technology that's powering our cars, battery tech and all of this, but we also have to green the grid. And we know that our plug-in cars will get greener as the grid gets greener. So this is really big news.
Yes.
I'm shocked at how cheap solar's gotten. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I got into an argument with a friend of mine who doesn't believe in man-made climate change, but does believe in climate change. I told him, I said, it doesn't really matter whether you believe in science or not. It's going to come get you. But even more so, you are all about self-sufficiency and thrift. Renewables cost less than fossil fuels now. And you should look at it that way. Because if it's good for the pocketbook, it's often also good for the environment in the long run.
Yeah, no matter where someone stands on any argument, there is no harm and only benefit in switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy. That's it. I don't care
Unless
if
you're
you're
the
doing
Koch brothers.
climate change.
Well,
Or at least the surviving Koch brother.
Yeah, unless you're the Koch brother.
The Koch brother. But yeah, I mean, for the average person, who, I don't think he's watching the show, but for the average person, there's no harm in just, making that switch. So we might as well just do it.
Well, not only that, but he's got enough time to coast, so don't worry about him. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
There you go.
Yep.
On a related, sort of related note, we have a long history on what drives us of talking about hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cells. And we're pretty much
laughing about hydrogen.
Yeah. We've spent probably an inordinate amount of time over the years laughing about hydrogen and making unicorn fart jokes and all of that. And I still am convinced that right now, at least, hydrogen is not necessarily a path that we should spend a lot of time and resources on. That said, a very interesting article in The Drive by Bertel Schmidt, who interviewed Professor Katsuhiko Hirose. He is in charge of Toyota's fuel cell development. And you're going to go, oh, God, of course he is, right? Who else would be pushing fuel cells? I mean, if Elon Musk can call them fuel cells, then they must be stupid. The other thing that we have said on this show repeatedly, though, is that there are some uses that fuel cells are really good for. It's not bad technology. Yeah. It's just space shuttle. Sure.
Yeah, spacecraft. Yeah.
So the base question is still, where's the hydrogen coming from?
That's the most important one.
And the secondary to that, though, has been that the cost of fuel cells have been so extreme. Toyota's only fuel cell vehicle right now, the Mirai, the first generation Mirai, is a $55,000 car. That's expensive. That's not a mainstream automobile, nor have they intended to produce it in numbers like that. That said, the interesting part of this interview was that Toyota sees the fuel cell cost. The takeaway here is Professor Hirose says that within 10, maybe 15, 20 years, he sees fuel cell vehicles costing the same as a current Corolla. In other words, it's not something that costs you a significant amount more. Now, does that still ignore where the fuel's coming from? Who just unzipped their pants on the show?
I unzipped my lunchbox to get my drugs.
Jesus.
Have the Doritos.
I didn't realize that it would pick it up because I'm wearing a different headset today.
Your microphone is working, sir.
Got 3 more of those, so I gotta get the drugs on the other side of the lunchbox.
I just expected to see somebody's balls on the camera or something, for God's sake. I mean, if you're gonna make that noise, at least give us something.
Damn.
Anyway.
Here's the drugs.
No.
Done.
So, where I'm going with this is, I have to give Bertelsschmidt credit. I read this, and I'm having other conversations. I want to say coming up, there's a gentleman named Matthew Klippenstein who has done a lot of work. We've quoted him. He used to do the Canada sales number for, was it Clean Technica or was it Inside EVs? Anybody?
I think it was Inside.
It was Inside, yeah. Anyway, Matthew is a fuel cell engineer, and Matthew and I are going to sit down, and he's going to talk to me, educate me a little bit about why hydrogen might make a little more sense than it used to.
I mean, the technology is awesome. Just make it affordable and put in the filling stations, and that's what the problem is.
Right. No one's built the infrastructure, and the question of where the hydrogen comes from right now is still pretty bad.
It's pretty sketchy. Yes.
Yeah. Casey's
Casey,
muted.
your mic's off.
Is that leading into our next article?
It should be, but
Hello?
There we go.
Okay, so I saw an article the other day that was talking about how much cheaper this new hydrogen station is to install. It will fill your vehicle in 7 minutes, but it takes a 25-minute recharge in between cars to handle it.
So if you drive up and the guy is still there, you're going to have to wait like 32 minutes to get a charge.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But again, it's not $1 million for the station anymore. So progress.
Yeah. How about just put a funnel on your ass and eat at Taco Bell and charge your car that way?
Got the show title.
All right. It's not unicorn farts.
Well, that's methane,
Taco
but
Bell
it's kind of a
farts.
cousin of hydrogen, right?
Well, and that is one of the things. Using electrolysis of methane, you can strip the hydrogen atom molecule off of the so you could do that.
Something goes awry, it's going to be a real backfire.
It could be. So
exactly.
I got to get out of this topic.
I had the opportunity to drive the FCX Clarity, the burgundy one, and that car was a blast to drive. And it was basically, it's an EV, but the fuel source is the hydrogen. And so we were able to just blast that thing around town, and you could watch the lithium battery just go down. And then the hydrogen only runs at one speed, so it was able to slowly recuperate, assuming I kept my foot out of the pedal. It was able to regenerate, and it had like a 600-mile range or something like that. They said 300. It was many years ago now. It was like 2007, 2009. And like we've been saying, if it's sourced properly and if the thing doesn't cost too much, then it's not a terrible solution.
No. All I'm saying is I am here. I'm admitting, not that I was wrong. I was right in the past, and I'm still right. Yeah. But I do think that maybe we might finally be on the edge of developing some technology that will help hydrogen make sense. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right.
That's what we're
and as is mentioned in the Drive article, he's talking about, because we talked about the land mover, the mining truck that regened going down the hill. And in the article here, he mentions the what is it? Heros mentions, he says, a battery electric 40-ton truck with 500 kilometers range would need 8 tons of battery. He says if you want to transport goods, not a huge battery. And that is one thing that we often ignore when we talk about transportation and moving things and the force of moving objects. When you're sitting in the car alone, your engine, your motor, whatever the source is, it's moving a 2-ton vehicle plus you. I mean, you're like less than 1%. So when here you're talking about a transportation truck and shipping goods, you want to ship more goods than battery. So he uses that as an example. Like Russell said, there are applications for hydrogen. Hydrogen can give you the range and is a lot lighter than the batteries. In that application, hydrogen is a viable solution. So again, it's like Russell said, we're down on hydrogen, but we're down on hydrogen for passenger cars because of the infrastructure and the refueling and where it's coming from and how it's being used. But there are good uses for hydrogen.
I mean, if you could do hydrogen electric semi trucks and have hydrogen fueling stations at all the truck stops, that could work, for example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's $1 gazillion to build the fueling stations. So.
Right.
And that's something that one of the trucking new companies, Nikola, is actually proposing, hydrogen semi-trucks.
Right.
I mean, if they can get the funding and then actually get them executed, as far as not to execute the people, but actually get the stations in the ground, that could be viable.
And they could target certain routes, like I-95, build enough stations to go up and down I-95, I-5 in the west, where all the traffic is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Tony, you had a good point about using the fuel just to carry the fuel. Like I heard once, like a 747 airplane back in the day took 20% of its fuel just to get the rest of the fuel off the ground on takeoff. So they had to calculate how much they're going, and obviously you don't want to take more fuel than you need because you're going to waste that fuel just carrying the fuel, but you don't want to shortchange yourself because then you crash. So, but that's 20% of your tank is gone in the first mile, which sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Tony has two somewhat related stories.
Yeah. So, Russell mentioned the Mirai, and it turns out that it's expected that the Mirai Generation 2 is expected to be revealed next year. And the reason that's a big deal, I mean, for one, it's a second generation Mirai. Throughout the life of the first generation Mirai, we actually saw the fuel cell itself shrink considerably from a large fuel cell to something small enough that I think it fits under a seat or something. I mean, it's very small now, isn't it?
Yes, the fuel cell stack in the current Mirai fits under the front driver's seat.
Okay, yeah. And so, I'm
and does the
anxious.
water expel come into a cup so you can drink it on your drive to work?
If you put it strategically under the thing, like Russell did in his video. And if you haven't seen the video, there's going to be a little eye in the upper right corner of this that's going to link you directly to Russell's Mirai video. How was that? Hey, that was pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't see the eye.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
So anyway, why is 2020 in Japan a big deal? It's because it's going to be the Tokyo Olympics. Mark, you're just making me laugh.
I'm still looking for the eye.
It's up there.
Put it right on his face.
Anyway, Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and they are expecting that Toyota is going to reveal the Mirai at the Tokyo Auto Show and then have a fleet of them ready for the Olympics to highlight this technology and Toyota's investment in hydrogen and particularly the Mirai. However, according to this article here in autoblog.com, there's not a lot of expectations to see the Mirai available commercially until maybe 2021, which would be maybe 21, probably for the 2022 model year. So if you're looking to get a second gen Mirai, then you're going to have to wait until 2022. But
maybe
getting back, maybe. But like Russell said, we see these companies who are jumping all in on hydrogen. Toyota is certainly one of them.
Toyota's been a big supporter. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Isn't that because of the Japanese subsidies?
Yes.
That's the reason that the Nissan, Toyota, and Honda have been so gung-ho about hydrogen this whole time?
Yeah. Well, and they have an existing hydrogen infrastructure that serves a small nation like Japan much better than the U.S. Absolutely.
Canada, Australia, Europe. Yeah.
Now, let's just say I'm sworn to secrecy on this, but I may have news on this front.
Oh.
Maybe late next week.
Sure.
Okay.
Spring that on us.
Check,
And then say you can't say anything.
Yeah, check back next week's show, and we'll see. Maybe.
I can't even talk because I do it all the time to you guys. It's like, hey, look over here.
All right, now I'm looking forward to next week's show. You want to just call this show now and then just wait until next week?
You better have been looking forward to next week's show before the show even started, okay? I don't want to hear any of that. And speaking of hydrogen, Tony.
I was going to say, I'm not even looking forward to this week's show, and we're already halfway through it. So, speaking of hydrogen, this has been like almost the first 3 stories have been about hydrogen, and so there's movement. It turns out that some engineers in Alberta think they have found a way to extract hydrogen from the oil sands and leave the dirty carbon-based emissions in the ground
gunky shit
where
in
they
the ground.
belong. Yeah, leave the gunky shit in the ground. Exactly. Now, they kind of explain it here. It's cbc.ca article. And the way they explain it is actually what they do is they pump oxygen into the well, and it has to be kind of a deep well. They pump in oxygen, and it's under pressure, so it creates very hot steam, and that creates a chemical reaction that frees the hydrogen, and then they use special filters to free the hydrogen and keep everything else under there. So, they may be able to extract hydrogen from underground and leave the gunk down there. But the interesting part is the gunk is still down there. So if they ever decide to pump it out, it's actually still there. But this was all about the hydrogen part.
Yeah, well, it's always going to be still there. Like that's part of the makeup of the tar sands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it, but right now it's covered by layers and layers and layers of dirt to keep it from leaking out. But absolutely, it's always going to be there. It's just part of the makeup.
Yeah,
but if they take the hydrogen out, it's no longer a hydrocarbon. It's just some kind of sludge. Can you still make plastic out of it and stuff like that? Or have you got just?
I am not a chemist.
No idea.
Yeah. They do say in the article
maybe the hydrogen is already mixed in with the sludge and it's kind of just floating around and it doesn't affect the sludge.
Yeah.
Hydrocarbon.
Yeah. And they said this is still kind of theoretical. They need some more field testing to see if this is actually viable on a large scale. But so
basically fracking for hydrogen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, I guess.
Sort of. Yeah. Sort of. Hey, Mark, I'm just curious. Have you ever heard of Vaughan, Ontario?
I have. That's just north of downtown Toronto.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, Canada is testing something. We've spoken often on the show about how ADAS systems and self-driving autonomous vehicle systems. One of the things that you hear, although very quietly, usually after the fact, from manufacturers working on this, is we're going to need to fix the infrastructure, which means we have to customize it for autonomous vehicles. And obviously, a lot of that could be incredibly expensive and difficult. So solving those problems, those challenges to make the roads more visible in a computer language has been one of the challenges. 3M Canada, post-it note, folks, right? Yay, 3M. 3M Canada is working with something called the 407 ETR Concession Company. They operate Ontario's Highway 407. It's a toll road. Okay. And they're testing a 2.5 kilometer section of it using a special retroreflective tape that 3M has developed that
but
helps.
It's in 2-inch squares. They have to lay them down every 2 inches.
No, it actually, what it does is it flanks the existing dashed lines in between the lanes. The tape does, and it helps obviously the car's vision sensors see where the road is. This is a fairly cheap solution, and it doesn't solve all the problems. It maybe solves a little bit of them, but it's a step in the right direction. And it's one of those things, as opposed to saying, hey, we need to completely rebuild all the roads so autonomous vehicles can be on them. This is something that's doable, that is reasonable.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same
what
thing.
about if there's snow on the road?
Right. Yeah. What about that?
Yeah.
Well, they don't get that in Canada, so you don't have to worry
No
about
snow
that.
here.
There you go.
No snow.
Yeah. I was going to suggest that they make the roads more visible to humans, and then the machine can just read off of that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, but humans drive on them every day. Albeit,
Yeah, but like
humans don't care about the lines. Oh, that's in Boston.
There's that, but like a lot of times the lines are so faded and so far past where they should have been touched up that it's just practically criminal. Like when it rains, like you cannot see, as a human, you cannot see, because of the rain, you cannot see the markings on the pavement.
I'll give you an example. I'm sharing a photo here of the 407 north of Toronto.
Thank you.
And this is a concrete highway. A lot of roads and highways in Ontario are asphalt, but this is a concrete road. And what they've done here is the typical white lines you see on a road. What they've done is they've outlined them in black, so the white has more contrast on concrete. So we've noticed this certainly with concrete roads which are lighter in color. Putting white lines on it sometimes is a bit of a washout, but this program will make them more highly visible by putting some contrast in the actual markings.
Yeah, we've been doing that here in the States for a little while now. Like they'll paint a black line and they'll paint the white line on top of it, like you said, for contrast.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same thing, but I've started
might not be the
seeing
same thing, but
these
the same
exact
concept.
thing, around work and stuff, and not just on the lines, but the text, stop, and the arrows and other things. I saw this picture and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I've started seeing. If I remember, I'll take pictures and I'll have them like next week or something.
Okay. Well, when you think about it, 3M does make a lot of the paint here.
They do.
And it's clearly not paint. I mean, these are clearly
they're
They're
stickers.
like nylon. They lay them down and then they heat them up so they melt to the surface. It's pretty cool stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Yeah, like you said, it's a simple fix.
And then hopefully don't come off easily.
When we need to remember something, do we write on them? Is that what we do?
Yeah, you lean out of the car and write on it as you're stuck in
I'll be back
traffic.
next Tuesday, see what I remember.
Pick up a quart of milk.
Yeah.
So in other vehicle developments, here was and I'm going to kind of dovetail this in with something else that I've been seeing. So let me start with that.
Okay.
I've been seeing a lot of EV, electric vehicles are not the solution to the problems that we have.
Oh.
And while I think there's a valid point to be made there, I think what trying to make that point that simply, that baldly kind of does is it sets people, we're by no means accepting of electric vehicles as a society, as a mainstream. It's still very much a hill that we are climbing. And it makes me sad to see editorials and opinion pieces and even some reporting that EVs are not the solution. Well, in a sense, more cars are not the solution. However, the point that none of those articles ever mention is that electric vehicles are way better than ICE vehicles. And that's the progression, is perhaps ICE vehicles, electric vehicles, and then less vehicles, better mass transit. Anyway, so here's an interesting thing from a San Francisco Chronicle article this past week. Between 1990 and 2016, despite a sizable 35% increase in overall fuel efficiency of our national vehicle fleet, national emissions rose by 21%. Now, your head's spinning. You're like, how in the hell is that even possible? Why? Because those improvements were accompanied by a 50% increase in driving.
Do you know what happens when you give someone more energy efficient light bulbs?
They burn more energy.
They never turn them off.
Yep.
It's not just me saying that. It's been proven. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, if you give people cheap gas, they drive more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
stuff like that.
I mean, you're right. If your vehicle's more fuel efficient and it costs you less to get from point A to point B, you're going to drive it.
Right.
Again, this is an argument though that's fraught with difficulties. You know what I mean? As I've said on Twitter many times, the solution is less cars.
Yes.
Bottom line, that the solution is less cars, whatever their makeup. But an interim solution, just as hybrids were an interim solution, is perhaps better cars. We're not going to get rid of personally owned automobiles in the United States anytime soon. For better or worse.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It's we do have. I've used this scenario with people before. We have people who have a quarter, and we offer to give them 75 cents, and they complain because it's not $1.
Yep.
It's like, okay, you've got something that's heavily polluting, something that will kill you. We would like to replace it with something that's better as we transcend to something that's even better yet. So don't complain about the middle step. We're not finished yet. But people don't want to change anything because they're like, well, but it's not perfect. You need to get it perfect right out of the gate, or we're not going to adopt it.
I'm not even going to look at it because it's not perfect yet.
Perfect is the enemy of good.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Coughlin is wise.
Yes, he is. And sometimes that's enough to get people to be resistant to any change at all.
Well, when it's an excuse, like I'm going to keep my F-150 until there's a perfect solution because this other solution isn't as good. Oh, well, that makes no fucking sense at all. But hey, thanks for playing.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, one more. I'm going to throw one more number. Anybody have any idea what the single largest? Well, obvious. I'm not going to play that game. Transportation is the single largest source of climate pollution. 82% of that pollution comes from cars and trucks. 82%. The answer is less ICE vehicles and ultimately less vehicles.
Yeah.
Assuming we still want to breathe. I mean, and maybe breathing is passé.
One thing I'd like to add is that is there possibly the segregation between cars and CUVs, SUVs, and trucks. This transition from people going from passenger cars to a bigger vehicle, and they're in a different category, right? So there are emission controls against each category. Is it the problem that people are moving from the smaller vehicles to the bigger vehicles that are less emission constrained? Is that part of this problem about the more pollution? As we move to bigger, more polluting vehicles, the gains that we made in the smaller passenger vehicles are negated because the bigger vehicles are emitting more pollutants anyways.
Even though the bigger vehicles are cleaner than they used to be, people are still driving more. It's the increase in size of vehicles and it's just more people driving.
Well, and in a lot of states, the cost of housing has gone up, so people are driving
farther,
buying homes further from their workplace and driving more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's all.
Because they have to.
The idea of like, hey, let's follow Europe and Manhattan and make dense cities where people can live and walk to work and take public transit. That's not happening quick enough.
No.
I'm not going to ride the bus with somebody else.
I like that.
I mean, that's what they say.
But I'm weird.
The bus is, it's pretty easy. You just get on and just ride.
So I was cruising automotive news this week and I saw this headline and it stopped me dead. And I don't know that this is a discussion topic, but this is a survey. Automotive news, good source. This isn't like, some wacko posting on Seeking Alpha or something. And thank you, Seeking Alpha. Go ahead, send all your email to me. 3 out of 4 customers prefer to have their vehicle service done at the dealership. Now,
I can see that.
mass market consumer brands, 74% prefer the dealership, 26% somewhere else. Luxury brands, 81% prefer the dealership, 90% independent mechanics. Paul.
Paul's muted.
Oh,
Yeah.
darn. I was just like, Paul's like, he's screaming probably.
Paul's like self-censored.
He's not.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, everybody likes the dealer. They just don't like to pay the dealer prices and put up with their bullshit when you go in for an oil change and you need a timing cover resale that's $1,800,
Yep.
and you don't need it half the time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But they have nice waiting rooms. They probably have a cleaner shop environment than I do.
Sometimes.
Yeah. But there's an illusion, and my customers tell me this, that the dealer is going to give them better service and they're better trained to work on their car. And that might be true if it's a complicated problem and the senior tech is working on your car. But if you go in for a routine service, the $9 an hour 17-year-old is the guy who's working on your car. Because when they sell you the $40 oil change, there's no way they can make money if they put a senior tech on that project. So you're getting the guy who was flipping burgers yesterday at Wendy's, changing your oil.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I mean, I went to
and those Jiffy Lube places, they're even worse.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because half the time the guy's out there spinning a sign hoping to get people in, and the other half the time he's maybe changing the oil. I went to a Toyota dealership, which will remain nameless. I waited 3 hours for them to change out a front seat. Take the old seat out, put a new seat in.
4 bolts and like 3 wires.
At the end of the 3 hours, I had to make another appointment to come back because the tech couldn't figure out how to change the seat.
Like he didn't know what torque to use, or he didn't know how to do the connector, or
they didn't consult with me. They just gave me the bad news.
So bad
Because
news.
they put the 17-year-old oil change guy on the seat because the guy who could have done it was busy with other jobs.
Right.
More
First time
jobs.
dude's got a wrench and he's like, okay, I can do this. 4 bolts and 2 wires. And Paul's like, no, you can't. I just
Not while you're on meth, at least.
Yeah.
Oh man!
Wow.
Oh.
Went there. Are you kidding? No one can afford meth at that salary.
Mechanics on meth. That might be.
Let's just say I have a technician who used to work at I won't say Jiffy Lube, but one of those type of quickie places.
Mm.
And half the coworkers were on some kind of drug the whole day. So
Wow.
that's just what goes around in those places.
Just for clarification, which half was he?
Yes. Let's hope the half that wasn't on drugs.
You got clean for you, Paul.
So half of them were on drugs and the other half were narcs, is what it sounds like.
Or alcoholics or something. But
Oh, okay.
Those quickie lube places, stay away from them. They're
So I had went to one for my Volt because I didn't want to do it myself because I was at somebody else's property, and I didn't want to go to the dealership because all the dealerships in town had pissed me off, and they didn't properly close the oil fill cap, and I started smelling burnt oil, basically.
oil's puking out of your engine like
Yeah.
stone.
Well, it wasn't quite that bad. It was kind of like oozing out of because it was on, but it just wasn't tightened. And the Volt doesn't actually run its engine all that often, so you can imagine how long I was running with with an improperly capped oil. Yeah.
If I had that happen to me many years ago with a standard internal combustion engine car, and I didn't get out the parking lot before the smoke was just bellowing out from under the hood, and I drove it right back. And I knew exactly what had happened. They just spilled some oil on the engine, and it got really hot, and it started smoking. And I parked the car right in front of the door, smoke coming, out from under the hood, and there was, because I knew there was a waiting room full of people, and I parked it right there with the smoke coming out, and I looked at a woman.
My car was just in here. Look at it.
Yes.
No, yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what I did. And then I looked at a woman who I knew her car was up on the lift.
Oh man.
I looked at her, and I looked at her car, and I looked at my car. I looked back at her, and I said, "Is that your car?" She said, "Yeah." And I looked back at her. "Good luck," and just walked out. Yeah, never went back.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, we've seen all the stories of those places. Like they forget to tighten the drain plug. The customer's oil slowly drains out. Their engine blows up. They put too much oil in, and on a Prius that will disable the car. Just
the Prius is an interference engine too, right?
No, Prius is non-interference, but
okay.
But
the
all
systems will turn
need
it off.
oil to run. Yeah. Like they'll eventually destroy themselves without oil.
Yeah,
right.
and a Prius is only 3.5. Yeah, it's only 3.5, and they're like, oh, 5 quarts. Everybody gets 5 quarts. I mean, they just shove 5 quarts in there. Yeah.
Very bad.
So, I mean, if there's no other option, try those places, but try to stay away from them if you can. Because yes, they're convenient, but then they try and upsell you on all kinds of stuff you don't need.
The special drain plug is my favorite. The vacuum drain plug.
Right.
I'm not familiar with this. Are you talking like a spigot, or are you talking like something else?
They have like a thing you can flip a valve, and you don't have to use a wrench to drain your plugs.
Right. Which, of course, that's a great idea. You want to put that on the underside of your car, so that the oil could just surreptitiously drain out someday. No big deal.
I mean, there's a mechanism. It's hard to get it to. You got to release it and then flip it to get it. But still, you don't need it.
No. No. But it's one way to add $25 to a $39 oil change. That's all I got this week, kids. Anybody got one more thing? And I'm hoping it's only one of you.
I do, unless Parks got it.
Go ahead.
I can do mine in the shout-outs. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to let people know that if you're watching the show right now,
thank you.
Give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, we're looking for more than 1,008. So go ahead and subscribe. Give us another number. It would be greatly appreciated. And certainly you can follow us on the socials. You can see us at What Drives Us on Twitter, What Drives Us on Facebook, and really almost anywhere it's What Drives Us. I know it's a coincidence, but that's the way it works.
How did we manage to do that?
Wow.
I can't even imagine. Oh, we've been around 10 years. That's how.
In fact, we invented the internet just so we could have social media.
And this show.
Right.
I got a postcard from an industry trade show. You may have heard of Apex. It's like in a month or two. And they sent me a postcard that said, "What drives you?" And I almost said, "No, it's what drives us." But then we'd have to get our lawyers. So.
Right.
Yes.
It's like the time those bastards at Mercedes-Benz stole our name for a tagline on a commercial.
Yeah.
That cost me $1.5 million to get them to shut up. And if you believe that, you're insane.
Yes.
Had the whole legal team working on it for months.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, let's do some more shout outs then and go home. Mark, anything else you want to?
That's it.
Okay. Well, you can see Mark every week on the Tesla Life. And follow him on Twitter at the Tesla Life as well. I'll augment your plug. How's that for a deal?
All right, that works.
Mr.
Very
Green?
Profile, but not too much. I was challenged by Mr. Frost here to actually get a freaking video out by Monday, and I did it. Yeah. Did you get yours out? I win.
I got 1,000 subscribers.
You did.
I did not. I did not publish my Lexus UX 250h review.
I just knew that if I didn't, you would call me on it, whether you did yours or not. So anyway, there's a video that my wife took while we were in advanced summoning the vehicle to the trailer it was about to tow, and so she doesn't drive, so she's sitting there in the passenger seat and she's recording the car driving up to the trailer, which is pretty cool. You can check that out at youtube.com/KCGreen. That's KACEYGREEN.
There you go, Mr. Guzik.
Well, I was going to say check out my websites, boulderhc.com and boulderh.com, but boulderhc.com isn't working, at least here in Boulder.
Oh, no.
But we service and repair hybrid and EVs, and we sell used hybrid and EVs in the Colorado market.
So when the website's back online, go check out his latest specials. He finds these gems and he fixes them, so they're even better than they were when he got them, and they're great deals. Yeah,
we're upcycling old cars.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
And sometimes new cars. I got a car in this week that's not on our website. It's a 2019 Prius Limited with like 2,400 miles on it. So go figure.
A 2019 Limited?
Yeah.
Huh.
What's the difference?
It's just got all the toys.
Oh.
It's like what used to be called like a package 4 or package 5.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was like a new name for Persona or Advanced Tech or who knows what.
Yeah, but
I
it's not on our website yet.
I think you're up. I'm seeing it here.
Yeah,
you're up.
And,
I'm looking.
It just doesn't work in Boulder, so
I'm browsing used cars right
great
now.
Customers on the East Coast can see my inventory because they're going to come in and test drive cars.
Yeah,
I like that Japanese heavy hybrid there. That was pretty cool.
I really want. Can I get one of these RAV4s?
Inside.
Yeah, the Insight's classic. Yeah. Well, last and certainly not least, Mr. Tony Schaefer, bring us home, sir.
So I want you to know that if you want to read all the news we're reading, be sure to check us out online. We do have our Facebook page at facebook.com/whatdrivesus. And you can leave us comments and suggest news items or just like the page. Either way. Also, if you do use Flipboard as a news aggregator, be sure to subscribe to the What Drives Us magazine. A shout out, as usual, to Philip Barclay, who also flips articles into Flipboard. And a shout out to Russell, who is going to end up posting his UXH video before I post mine, even though, and I was, I was checking, and it turns out that I had the UXH back in when was this?
I think it was 2013, wasn't it?
It might have been. No, in May. I had the car in May, and I had the RAV4 hybrid after that, and I haven't published either of those videos. So I will get to those. Yes, I will get to those.
You know what? A little plug for Lexus, and I'll turn it back to you, Tony. I love that car. Totally did not expect to. That UX 250h hybrid, that is a nice little car. I mean, not just because it's spiffy. 40 mpg. Okay, 40 mpg in a crossover. It was a blast to drive. That's all, Tony.
That's the Lexus CHR.
That is the Lexus CHR, but it has so little in common with the I mean, obviously the frame, the TNGA-C frame, but after that, it's like.
So you absolutely love that car. Sounds like we are going to have a difference of opinions on our videos.
Except mine will be right.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
of course.
Why did I have to wreck it? I'm sorry, Tony. The mic's yours.
You don't have to be correct to be right. That's what I've learned. Yes. So that's all I've got. So and remember, we do have an audio version. So if you don't have time to watch the video, you can look for us on Stitcher, Spotify. I think we're Google Play, TuneIn, iTunes. Subscribe to all of them. Why not? And
so you're in Tesla too, as my car likes to remind me. Hey, listen to your show.
And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, because we haven't said it enough, make sure and subscribe.
Hit the button. Please do set up notifications. We have a super low notifications. Look at that. Mark's big, happy Canadian thumb there. So, yeah, thanks for that. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for his amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Please buy his music, support him, since he has supported this show since day one, much like Tony Schaefer. Mm-hmm. You can visit us, as Mark said, all over social media at What Drives Us on Twitter, at What Drives Us on or Facebook.com/What Drives Us. And again, YouTube.com/What Drives Us. Subscribe, suggest it to your friends, share the page. We'd love you for that. Thank you so much. I want to thank Casey Green, Mark Coughlin, Tony Schaefer, and Paul Guzik for putting up with my bullshit one more week. Wait. I put up
Traveled to New York to do it.
You're welcome.
What bullshit did we give you?
Yeah. Oh, please. I got to tell you, I have two titles, and I feel like both of them are too aggressive to use. So I'm going to poll the panel here during the show. I have funnel in your ass and mechanics on meth.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know that those are good titles to put. They're great secondary titles.
So I want you to know that I don't know if people know this, but when you cross the necessary requirements to monetize your YouTube channel, your channel goes under review, and apparently it takes a while YouTube reviews things. So until we actually cross that review period, we should probably not use funnel in your ass
as the title. How about something to the effect of it's not all about hydrogen? Because we started out all about hydrogen.
There is. I was thinking something about that. I don't know. We'll have to come up with something.
We'll brainstorm after the show. I want to thank all of you, all 1,008 of you idiots, lovely, wonderful, magical idiots who have
that's a way to
pressed
get
that
more
subscribe button. Thank you so much, because that's totally awesome that you did that. And all of you who haven't subscribed yet, please do. All of you who watch the show every week, obviously, you're the reason we do the show. I mean, we like to hang out with each other, but, you know. So thank you for watching. Tune in next week and find out what drives us. Take it away, Michael Manring. See you next week, everybody.